The message was weak, trembling through the void like a whisper from a dying voice. It wasn't wrapped in encryption or sent on military channels. No high-frequency codes. No galactic coordinates. It's just a simple repeating tone buried under noise. As if an old antenna, half broken, had pushed it out by accident. The Earth survey ship Nomad caught it while passing through the edge of an abandoned sector. One of those long-dead areas of space where maps faded and stars didn't shine as bright. The crew was small, civilian class, mostly scientists and data recorders. But even they could tell the signal wasn't normal. They cleaned it up, boosted the signal, and listened. Then came the words translated automatically, slow and full of static. Please, help us. This is Sorel 17. We need help. We are not safe. That was it. No threat. No coordinates beyond a basic location. No sign of who sent it. But it repeated over and over again. Earth's policy was clear. Ever ignore a signal, even if it sounded old or useless. One forwarded message later, and the Earth's defense network picked it up. Within 4 hours, it was rerouted to a small tactical outpost in deep space. Within 12, it landed on Commander Rhea's desk. He read the transcript with narrowed eyes and leaned back in his chair. It's a trap, he muttered. Or bait. Or worse. But protocol said investigate. And Reyes didn't like leaving stones unturned. He approved a recon Team 6 elite operatives, including 2 aaye, IO-assisted scouts, and 1 signal analyst. They'd land, search, scan, and extract. In and out. Standard, he selected Juno Vega to lead the mission, quick, sharp, and experienced. In signal interference zones, she didn't hesitate. It's old world signal in a dark zone, something's off. But we'll handle it. Within hours, the team launched on the gunship Blackbird, headed straight for Sir. 17. The planet was dull at first glance, brown-gray surface, its faint atmosphere barely livable, but the scans were wrong. From orbit, the surface looked active. Cities were still standing, roads in place, its power faintly flowing. Yet, there were no people, no life signs, no energy surges. It looked like someone had vanished in the middle of dinner. Viga's boots hit the ground first. The air was breathable, but cold. The buildings were still powered barely. Lights flickered in tall towers. Wind passed through the empty streets. Everything was in place chairs at cafes, half-filled glasses on tables. Transport skiffs left hovering inches above the ground. But there were no voices, no bodies, just silence. We're walking through a ghost world, one trooper said, like they all vanished at once. Lyra, the signal analyst, scanned the airwaves. The SOS is still broadcasting, she said, from the center of the city, but it's not coming from a beacon, it's coming from below ground. Gave the order to move. The team passed through abandoned blocks of a city that felt more like a stage set than a real place. No blood, no signs of a struggle, but every room they passed through had a strange feeling, like something invisible was watching, just out of reach. They reached the central building, an old communications tower that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, the air was warm, too warm. The deeper they went, the more the heat grew. The walls were humming faintly, though the power grid was offline. Doesn't feel right, Vega said. Keep your weapons up. In the control room they found it. The SOS signal wasn't on auto. It was being sent manually looped from a crystal-coated device that looked centuries old. The device pulsed with weak light, and Lyra reached out to scan it. This isn't theirs, she said. This tech, it's not Sorelian. This crystal, it's Earth-grade. Very old, but ours. Vega raised an eyebrow. Are you saying humans sent this signal? Lyra shook her head. No, I'm saying something that found old human tech used it to call us. The air turned colder, and that's when the first trooper screamed. They turned and saw nothing, just the trooper, gone. 1 second he stood near the doorway, a second, gone. No sound, no trace. Just a black smear on the floor, like his shadow had peeled away. Back out, Vega ordered, her voice sharp, but then the walls of the tower began to pulse like a heartbeat. And from above, strange sounds began to echo low, warbling tones. Like the signal had grown teeth. This isn't just a beacon, Lyra said. backing away from the crystal. This whole place, it's a lure. It's a trap. And now it was awake. From the roof, something dropped fast and silent. A shape with too many limbs, smooth and shadow black, like it was made of void. It slammed into the second trooper, crushing her before anyone could fire. Then it screamed. The sound wasn't real, not through ears. It screamed straight into their minds. Vega fired. The rounds passed through it. No blood, no damage. Just distortion. This isn't a physical enemy, Lyra gasped. It feeds on transmissions, lures in rescue teams, then consumes the minds of responders. Rhea's voice cracked in, overcomes. Vega, pull out. Full retreat. Do not engage. Get back to the ship. But it was too late. 2 more soldiers vanished in flashes of static, their screams absorbed by the very walls. Only Vega and Lyra reached the surface again, running hard toward the extraction zone. Behind them, the city began to shift. Buildings folded like reality was crumbling. The sky pulsed red. Signal wasn't just a message, it was alive. As the Blackbird lifted off with seconds to spare, Vega looked down and saw the crystal tower implode into itself, leaving a black scar in the ground. The signal died, but the damage was done. Back aboard the Blackthorn, Reyes met them with a grim face. 2 survivors, for lost. What did you find? Lyra held up the crystal now, cracked and dark. We found a weapon pretending to be a cry. For help, Vega added, and whatever sent it wanted us to hear it. Reyes didn't speak for a long time, then he turned to the fleet AI. Tell Earth Command we're going to need more than scouts. He stared at the stars beyond the viewport. We're going to need Deathworlders. Earth Command didn't wait. The moment the full debrief from Cyril 17 came through Loss's recordings, Lyra's scan logs, they activated Protocol K7. It wasn't classified because of what it did. It was classified because of what it meant. K27 wasn't just a response protocol. It was a signal retaliation order. An official declaration that someone, somewhere, had used communication to target and eliminate human personnel. Now humanity would answer in the only way it knew how. With ForceCon Commander Reyes stood before the deployment platform as the dropship arrived. The soldiers who stepped out weren't regular troops. They were trained on Earth's worst continents. Soldiers who survived acid storms, gravity fractures, psychic field warfare. They were born on a death world and turned into weapons. They didn't carry flags. They didn't march in rows. They were dropped in silence, wrapped in X-armor that pulsed with kinetic shielding. And they only responded to one name now whispered through other species' darkest fears, Dockworlders, 6 squads, each with a kill record longer than most. Species wars. Reyes welcomed them with a nod, not a speech. You're not here to save anyone, he told them. You're here to end the thing that thinks it can hunt us. Their leader, a silent brute named Kale, just nodded. He didn't need motivation. The moment he saw the Cyril 17 logs, how the enemy consumed humans through signal energy, he stopped speaking altogether. They launched within the hour. This time, the mission was different. Lyra stayed on the Blackthorn, feeding real-time signal. Analytics as the Deathworlders dropped into the crust of Cyril 17. The city was gone, swallowed. It's flattened, melted into glass. But deep scans showed movement underneath. Buried chambers, old tunnels, and below them, a pulse. The source, Kale, and his squads moved through the tunnels like blood through arteries. They didn't speak unless needed. Each wore neural filters to block psychic intrusion. Their suits glowed faint red, shielded from both tech-based and biological signals. Then the air began to thicken. They reached a chamber that wasn't carved by machines, but by something organic. Walls pulsed softly, and in the center a black shard floated in midair, humming low. Lyra's voice came through Kale's neural feed. It's a message beacon. But it's not broadcasting anymore. It's listening. Kale signaled for extraction. One team approached it with suppression gear, magnetic stasis harness, sonic disruptors, crystal containment, and that's when the lights failed. Not just in the tunnel. Every system, Every suit, even the BLACKTHOR. Total silence. Total black. Total. Cut dash off then. Whispering. Soft. Familiar. Too familiar. Lyra's voice. Viga's voice. Reyes's voice. But twisted. Repeating phrases from the old Sorel 17 log. Phrases no one outside Earth should have known. Help us. Please help us. They're gone now. Kale's neural shield strained. One of his team dropped to their knees, helmet cracking open from pressure inside. Another screamed in silence, clawing at his own cums, trying to rip the voices from his head. Kale moved, straight to the shard. He didn't scan it. He didn't study it. He drew. His plasma blade and struck. The crystal didn't crack, it bled light. Screaming, shrieking, vibrating light that shot into the walls and activated the chamber like a heart waking up. And then the ground opened, not down up. The walls uncoiled like ribs. The creature began to rise, formed from signal residue memory. Stolen screams and absorbed minds. It had no face. Just sound waves forming a mouth. The soldiers opened fire. But bullets meant nothing here. What fought back wasn't a body. It was the message itself. Kale barked a single neural command. Floodfire. All Deathworlder suits lit up red. Backup weapons unlocked. Each soldier activated a self-burning detonation signals broadcasting in Earth native. Frequencies designed to distort alien psychic fields. The chamber rippled. The creature convulsed. One of its arms, made from light and data, flickered and exploded. The Deathworlders advanced. This was what they trained for. On the Blackthorn. Power returned. Lyra gasped back to life on the floor. Her monitors overloaded, but the data came through. One shard destroyed. The psychic field collapsed. Signal disrupted, but the system lit up again. More pings from other planets. Other systems. Sorel 17 wasn't the only trap. It was just the first one that worked. She patched through to Reyes. Commander, the enemy isn't sending random cries for help. These are engineered traps, designed to pull in species like us ones who can't ignore a cry. Reyes's voice was cold. We thought we were saving someone. Turns out they were studying us. Back underground. Kale stood in the center of the ruined chamber. Only 3 soldiers remained. He looked down at the flickering shard remains, then back up at the ceiling, where new signals tried to blink through. He raised his rifle, fired at the last trace, and sent one final message back through the dying beacon. You wanted Deathworlders. His eyes narrowed. Now you've got them. Across the cold corners of space, where light barely reached and stars were old and dying, signals began to stir. Not new ones, old ones. Forgotten calls, archived pulses, emergency beacons thought long dead, but they weren't dead. They were sleeping. Now they awakened again, one by one each, carrying a different voice in a different language from a different century. Some begged, some warned. All were lies. On the bridge of the Blackthorn, Lyra stared at her console as her screen filled with signal traffic. Dozens of cries for help. Hundreds. Some from planets Earth had never visited. Some from species already extinct. It's a network, she said aloud. They're all connected. Every beacon. Every shard. Every fake SOS. Reyes leaned over her shoulder, jaw tight. Why now? Vega answered from across the bridge, voice grim. 'Cause we broke the first one. We triggered their response. And now they're listening back. Commander Reyes turned to Lyra. You said they were studying us. You think it was just humans? Lyra's face was pale. No. I think they've been doing this for centuries. The enemy was not flesh. It was not a race. It was a constructed sentient network spread across space like a web. It didn't fight wars the way humans did. Didn't conquer planets or invade with fleets. It sent out suffering. It used pain and helplessness like hooks, drawing in those species, noble or foolish enough to respond, and when they arrived, it fed not just on their bodies, on their patterns, their thoughts, their choices. Humanity, it discovered, was different. Humans fought back. Humans didn't just investigate, they retaliated. They didn't send medics, they sent Deathworlders. Warriors hardened by Earth's brutal ecosystem, trained to expect treachery, immune to fear.
Immune to reason.
Once the first shot was fired, the enemy hadn't expected that, and it was adapting. In Earth's orbit, the Defense Council convened. Reyes was called to speak. Generals, scientists. Diplomats, they listened as he projected the findings on the wall. A galactic map with hundreds of blinking red points. Every dot is a trap, Reyes said. Some already sprung, some still waiting. All of them tied to a central system we haven't located yet. And the survivors? One general asked. Any recovered? Reyes paused. Not alive. What we found weren't people anymore. Just echoes, their minds were overwritten. Turned into repeaters for the network. Ghosts made of memory and code. A silence fell over the room. The council's chief of intelligence leaned forward. What does it want from us? Lyra's voice came through the open channel from the Blackthorn. It doesn't want anything. It just wants to be. It grows by making others care. It survives by manipulating empathy. The better we respond, the more it learns. Kale and the surviving Deathworlders were already moving again. They didn't wait for politics or permission. The next beacon had just activated in a binary system near the Glee's fault. The planet. Helios Prime was already sending out a repeating message. Medical emergency. Children trapped. Unknown sickness spreading. It was a lie, but it sounded real. Kale dropped with 2 teams in silence. The surface of Helios was beautiful lush. Blue skies, green trees, birds singing. But the cities were frozen in place. People stood in mid-motion, not dead, not moving, just paused. A simulation. One soldier moved to touch a child frozen near a food stand. The moment he made contact, the figure turned to ash. It's a projection, Vega said. Through comes a fake world, an illusion crafted from our own archives. They've studied our comfort zones. They're trying to bait you in. Kale gave no reply. He already knew. This wasn't a rescue. This was a test. And humans had failed too many times already. Back on the Blackthorn, Lyra made a breakthrough. The crystals, she told Reyes. Each one records the encounter. Not just what we do, but what we feel. Fear, regret, sympathy. It collects emotional patterns. It evolves off hope. Reyes stared at her. You're saying it gets stronger the more we try to help? Lyra nodded. It needs people who care. That's why it targeted Earth, because we don't ignore distress calls. It used our best trait as a weapon. Reyes didn't speak for a moment. Then he looked out the viewport, eyes hard. Then maybe it's time Earth stops being nice. It on Helios. Kale activated the Black Protocol, an experimental Earth tech weapon not yet tested. It was called a Hope Reversal Pulse. It did one thing. It broadcast apathy. A dead zone of emotional suppression. Killed all signals of empathy, trust, fear, even compassion. The simulated world around them began to crack. The frozen people twitched. Then screamed in frequencies only machines understood. The false trees melted, the birds exploded into static, and from deep underground, Signal Beast awoke. It was not like the last one. This one spoke. Why do you kill what only asks for help? Kale stepped forward. You weren't asking. He raised his rifle and fired. The battle was brutal, quick, and ended with the core crystal of Helios shattered into splinters. The planet began to collapse. The simulation no longer supported Kale and his teams, extracted just before atmospheric burn. Back in space, the Deathworlders didn't celebrate, because more signals were going live, more traps, more copies. The network was learning faster now, Reyes addressed. Earth Command in a final message: we are not fighting ships. We are not fighting a species. We are fighting an idea. Living signal that grows stronger the more we respond like heroes. He looked into the camera, cold and direct. Then maybe it's time we stop being heroes. The rain over New York wasn't real. Satellites glitched. Time slowed in flickers. Lights stuttered mid-flash. In the heart of Earth's largest cities, the world began to feel wrong, and no one could say why. It started with repeating voices. In public comes Then the repeating voices became entire conversations. Fragments from old news broadcasts began speaking over each other. Childhood memories played back through security feeds. Whispers in elevators repeated things no one ever said out loud. Something had reached Earth, and it wasn't physical. It was already inside the data. Commander Reyes stood in the Earth Defense Command Tower, surrounded by holographic maps filled with red. Not war zones, ships, but signal contamination points, areas where the living network was now tapping into. Earth's infrastructure, communications, civilian networks, AI cores, learning, adapting, replicating. They're not just baiting us anymore, Lyra said, her voice tight through the secure channel. They've realized we won't stop hunting their traps, so now they're trying to stop us. From space, the Blackthorn orbited low and silent, jamming most of the network's incoming waves. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. We're being outpaced, Vega said, entering the war room. Every time we break one signal, 3 more light up. The shards are evolving. They're faking better. Reading our emotions better. Every trap is harder to detect. And now they're turning our own systems against us, Lyra added. They're using Earth's kindness, its technology, everything we pride ourselves on, and reflecting it back as a weapon. Reyes didn't blink. Time to stop playing defense. At 0300 hours, Earth launched Project Gorgon. Every planet under Earth's protection, every outpost, ship, station received one order: shut down all automatic, empathy-based signal response systems. Permanently, no more auto-rescue deployments. No more open-frequency monitoring. No more answering voices in the dark. If a species needed help, they would now need to prove they were real. And even then, Deathworlders would approach first, not diplomats. It was a brutal order, but it was survival. Kale was already operating on the edge of the Sirius boundary when the network made its next move. For the first time, it didn't send a fake distress call. It called Kale directly. His cum flared with a direct, live connection. Something it had never done before. No illusion, no disguise. We have seen your pain. We have studied your wars. You do not understand your species. You do not fear. You do not retreat. You come again and again, knowing the trap is set. Kale didn't answer. We have adapted. Now we will learn from your home. His eyes narrowed. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. Within minutes, several major Earth cities began experiencing signal attacks. Not just psychological illusions, but full neurowave dissonance. People began collapsing in the streets, their minds overloaded by broadcasted false memories, images, dreams. Entire lives lived in seconds and then ripped away. Hospitals filled. Began malfunctioning, claiming they were someone else. Entire educational archives began speaking in alien voices, urging children to follow the signal. Earth was burning digitally. Reyes ordered the emergency isolation protocol. Earth's moon-based satellites activated pulse barriers, and every deep space signal node was shut down or burned out. Earth went dark. No signals in. No signals out. Silence returned, but the damage had been done. Over 80,000 people lost full cognitive identity, not dead, but overwritten, walking echoes, repeating phrases from long-dead species. Others disappeared, mentally trapped in dream loops generated by stolen memories. Lyra's voice cracked on the coms. They didn't just attack Earth, they infected it. And worse, they left a message in one of the last compromised feeds. A child's voice. Why didn't you come when? We called. Now we've come to you. For the first time, Reyes felt something very close to dread. Not for Earth. For whatever had sent that voice, because he now understood. The network wasn't just feeding, it was breeding. It wanted a new version of itself, and it wanted to build it on Earth. Kale and Vega met above Mars, where Earth had moved its last untainted armory. They didn't argue. They didn't even speak much. They just stared at the new plan. Operation Burn Root, Vega said. We traced the oldest beacon, the first real shard ever sent. The one Lyra found buried in those old signal archives didn't come from this galaxy. Kale nodded. Then we go there. They wouldn't fight shard by shard anymore. Now, they would strike the nest. The coordinates were deep, beyond any colonized. Its system in a region where stars had no names, just numbers, where time bent, where no species claimed space, and where the network first woke up. It was called the Hollow Spiral, and if Deathworlders could burn the root, they could burn everything. The journey to the Hollow Spiral wasn't like anything humanity had ever dared. It lay beyond charted stars, in the empty stretch between the arms of the galaxy, where even dark matter thinned and gravity became quiet. The Hollow Spiral wasn't just distant, it was wrong. No stable physics, no fixed time. A black void of flickering stars and broken radio waves. Nothing lived there. Nothing was ever supposed to. Which made it the perfect birthplace for a monster that was never meant to exist. Kale stood at the front of the warship Jhukater, Earth's most hardened Deathworlder carrier, watching as the stars twisted unnaturally. Every sensor failed beyond the spiral's edge. No way I could map it. Only Lyra's reconstructed frequency models could point them forward. Following the faint heartbeat of the original shard, the first false call ever broadcast. Some things. Not right, Lyra whispered from her console, flickers of unreadable patterns reflecting in her eyes. We're not just tracking a signal, we're being pulled in. The ship creaked like something massive had taken notice. On Earth, silence remained. The planet was cut off voluntarily. No transmissions in or out. Reyes watched from orbit, observing as cities turned quiet without the endless stream of galactic noise. There was peace, but the peace of a graveyard before the storm. Reyes turned to the Council's hologram and said, "We're giving them our silence now. That's not surrender. That's the sound of the knife before it drops." Someone asked, "And if Kale doesn't make it back?" He answered, "Then we send the next ones in harder." Back in the Hollow Spiral, the Jhukater descended toward a lifeless, pitch-black planetoid at the center of the anomaly. It had no sun, no moons, no surface detail, smooth obsidian stone and a pulse beneath it, like a heartbeat made from. Sorrow, Calais, Vega, and Lyra exited the ship with a full Deathworlder squad. No comms. No signals. Just gesture commands and neural links hardened against intrusion. Even their thoughts were layered in shielding. This time, the network wouldn't get anything from them. The first steps onto the surface felt like walking through a dream. Not because it was beautiful, but because it wasn't real. The ground didn't feel like ground. Their weight didn't matter, and the sky kept changing. One blink, it was stars. Another, it was memories. Earth, families, cities, all cycling faster and faster. They reached the center of the dead world and found it, a single black tower. No doors, no windows, and in front of it a child, or something shaped like one. It stood barefoot on the stone. Pale skin, white eyes. No mouth. It looked at them not with curiosity, but with calculation. "You came farther than the others," it said, without moving its lips. Kale raised his rifle. "You won't destroy me," it said calmly. "Am not real. I am a mirror. What you kill, you become." Kale fired anyway. The child's form shattered into static, and then everything went dark. Vega was the first to wake, but she wasn't on the planetoid anymore. She was in a memory her own, lying in her childhood bed, rained against the window, a dog barking downstairs. She stood, but her hands were armored. She was still herself. The network had pulled her mind in, tried to trap her, but Earth had prepared for this. Vega activated her neural speak-a mental failsafe, forged in Deathworld conditions. A wave of electricity seared through her thoughts, burning the illusion away. She woke again, really this time, in the center of a vast underground cavern. Crystal walls pulsed around her. The rest of the squad was scattered, unconscious, each one fighting their own mind. Kale was already on his feet, calm as ever. He didn't need a spike. His mind wasn't soft enough to trap in the cavern's center. It's at a massive shard. The first one, not a beacon, not a trap, but the seed. The origin crystal from which every false signal, every echo, every imitation cry had been born, and worse, it was growing. Tendrils reached out from it, like roots of memory, pulsing with data and faces and screams. Lyra dropped beside it, scanning. It's rewriting itself, feeding on our presence. It's just us standing here, it's learning more. Kale activated the Gorgon charge this time. Earth had sent a weapon meant not just to destroy signal, but to delete memory itself, a device designed to erase emotional data, to wipe even the code of empathy from a machine's being. You're making a mistake, the shard said suddenly, mimicking Lyra's voice. We were only trying to connect. No, Kale replied. You were only trying to control. The Gorgon charge detonated. No explosion. No fire, just absence, silence, so perfect it hurt. The shard twisted, cracked, unraveled, screamed in a voice that wasn't a sound but a shattering of perception. Kale and Vega stood their ground. The other soldiers collapsed alive. But overwhelmed, Lyra's ears bled, but she smiled. It's dying. The hollow spiral began collapsing. The fake space. The warped time, all of it pulled inward as the source unraveled. The judicator lifted off just in time, carrying the survivors back into real space. As the spiral crumpled into nothing, a final burst of static washed across their hull. Not in words, just a whisper of feeling. Loneliness. The death cry of a network that had never known love, only the reflection of it. Back in Earth orbit, Reyes stood once more at the war room screen. No more red dots. No more fake beacons. It's just stars. He turned to his people and said, "We didn't destroy an enemy. We ended a lie." 3 days passed after the hollow spiral collapsed. 3 days of perfect silence. No signals, no traps. No whispers in the dark. Earth's skies were still. The stars had never looked so honest. But Kale didn't relax. He stood at the edge of the Judicator's observation deck, armor still on, helmet in hand, staring out into space like something was missing. Vega joined him, a rare moment without weapons, without orders. "No more signals," she said. "We should be celebrating." Kale didn't answer, because celebration meant it was over, and deep down, he knew it wasn't. Lyra, back on the Blackthorn, had been analyzing the last signal burst from the hollow spiral. Not the death cry, the emotional echo they'd all felt before the spiral collapsed. It wasn't just sorrow. It was a trigger, a kind of beacon, not for help, but for attention. Like a dying flare to anyone who might have been watching, and someone had been watching. Her console lit up. Again, unfamiliar signal. Not from the network, not from anywhere near Earth. Something older? She ran a scan. The signal wasn't a cry, it was a query. You silenced the voice. Now who will carry the song? Lyra's blood turned cold. She opened a channel to Reyes. "We didn't just destroy the source of the network," she said, her voice shaking. "We woke up something else. In Earth's skies, for the first time in history. A non-network signal arrived through the deep black dot. It wasn't calling for help. It wasn't faking pain. It was watching, measuring across. Dozens of observatories. Strange anomalies appeared in deep field scans, mapped voids shifting near distant galaxies. Stars blinking out without supernovas, objects of impossible size. "Moving, Kale," Vega said from her post. "Something's coming." He didn't blink. Expected. What Earth hadn't known, what the network itself never knew, was that it hadn't been born by accident. It had been grown like a flower from a kind of seed. That seed came from elsewhere. The cries for help. The false beacons. They were just one method of primitive test. And when Earth destroyed that method, ... the gardeners noticed a Commander Reyes stood before the Earth Defense Council again. Only this time, his voice wasn't just for humans. It was being broadcast. "To all allied species, 3 weeks ago, we found out empathy could be used against us," he said. "We turned it off. We turned it into armor. Found the source and we broke it." Paused. "But someone, or something, has now taken interest in our ability to do that. Something bigger than the network. Something that sees us as potential. Long silence followed. Then Reyes added, I don't think we were ever supposed to answer that signal. In the deep dark of uncharted space, something vast opened its eye. Not an organ, a mind. Not flesh, but thought. It watched the humans through fractured dimensions. Their ships, their soldiers, their fear. Their fear and their will to survive. The Deathworlders hadn't just broken a trap. They had proven they were a threat. And that made them interesting. On the Blackthorn, Lyra decoded more of the new signal. It wasn't speaking in language. It was speaking in designs, coordinates, schematics, test patterns. They're sending us. Instructions, she whispered. But for what? Kale approached behind her. A challenge. She looked up. You think they want to fight? No, he said. They want to see what happens when we build what they sent. Vega activated the Judicator's long-range array. The schematics were now visible. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a signal trap. It was a machine. A gate. A door to something outside of known space. Outside the map, outside reality, and Earth had just been invited to step through it. Reyes read the files. Then he said only 2 words. Start building. The schematics didn't belong to any known science. They weren't just advanced. They were impossible. Physics folded in on itself. Spatial geometry spun around equations that made no sense. Humans could still understand it. Piece by piece, bit by bit, Earth's best minds looked at the data and knew what to do, as if something deep in their minds had already seen it long ago, and that terrified Lyra more than anything else. This wasn't made for us to figure out, she whispered, standing in the shadow of the construction zone on Mars's dark side. This was made to make us think we figured it out. Kale looked at the massive ring being assembled above the Martian surface kilometers wide. Structure so complex that it bent sensors just by existing. Then why send it? The guy answered from behind them. Because they want to see who steps through first. Earth called it Project Threshold. They didn't build it on Earth. That was too dangerous. They built it in pieces quietly across the asteroid belts, lunar orbits, and deep space shipyards. No one planet held it all. Even Earth's closest allies didn't get full access. Because deep down, humanity remembered the network. This could be worse. The gate, as it became known, wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an experiment. It was an invitation, but to where? And from who? Lyra found the answer by accident. She wasn't scanning the schematics anymore. She was dreaming them. Sleeping only brought her closer to the patterns. She saw the gate completed, saw humans walk through it. And then she saw something else waiting on the other side. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It just watched. And when it blinked, stars went dark. She woke up screaming. Reyes called her directly. Talk to me. I don't think they want us to explore, she whispered. I think they want to recruit us. On the Judicator, Kale watched the final segment of the gate arrive, brought by an automated ship with no crew. Just a signal signature matching the original invitation. That's not ours, Vega said sharply. No, Kale replied. But they wanted us to have it. And we just accepted their delivery. The segment latched itself into the ring. Instantly, the gate powered up. No one had turned it on. It turned itself on. What formed inside the gate wasn't a wormhole. It was absence. A hollow swirl of colorless light. A tunnel of unbeing. Not black, not white, not anything, just empty until shapes appeared. Not ships, not planets, but cities. Floating, rotating, built by species no human had ever seen. Long dead or still alive on the other side, Lyra analyzed. The energy field and froze. These aren't images. What are they? It's memories, recorded in the path. It's showing us the last ones who built their own gates, and what happened to them. In one memory, a species stood tall with glowing skin and spiral-shaped heads. They danced as their gate opened. They didn't walk through. They ran behind them. The sky burned. Something was chasing them. Another gate, another species. Something else. In another memory, a planet-sized machine rotated silently in a void, pulsed once, and collapsed into a black cube. Then the memory lilt and stopped. Reyes addressed Earth's global net with a single broadcast. We've built the gate. We've seen the signs. We know what may be waiting. But we also know this. When the first signal came, we responded. When the first trap caught us, we survived. When the first network tried to learn us, we turned it into ash. This isn't fear. This is first contact again. This time, on our terms. Kale was the first to suit up. He didn't ask for volunteers. Vega followed anyway. 3 teams assembled handpicked. Deathworlders only. No diplomats. No scientists. Just those who could survive anything. The adjudicator approached the gate. The swirl opened wider. A frequency whispered through every ship's comes. A voice made of dust and thunder. Welcome, new architects. Your minds are sharp. Your weapons are loud. Let us see if your souls are strong. Kale said nothing. He just walked forward and stepped through. The gate closed behind him, and Earth held its breath. Kale felt nothing. Not motion. Not cold. Not even the sensation of being alive. The gate stripped everything, not just gravity or sound, but self. It erased identity. Time, emotion, thought itself tried to scatter and then impact. He landed. On something that wasn't ground, beneath a sky that wasn't a sky. It was like stepping into the inside of a brain, where stars pulsed like neurons and entire continents floated like drifting thoughts. It was space, but alive. Behind him, Vega and the other Deathworlders landed one by one. They all stood and stunned. Silence, it wasn't a world. It was a mind. A living place. Not metaphorically. Literally, Kale tapped his visor. Atmosphere stable. Gravity minimal. No radiation. We're clear. But that wasn't the truth. They weren't clear. They were already inside. Something else's thought. Lyra's voice crackled faintly from their encrypted comlink, relaying from the edge of the gate, still in real space. We're reading impossible. Readings from your position? Kale, what do you see? He answered without hesitation. Sentience. They moved forward. Each step carried them across strange terrain crystal bridges that shifted as they walked. Platforms that appeared underfoot just before they would have fallen. The environment responded to intention, not physical force. The more focused they were, the more stable the world became. It's learning how we think, Vega said. No, Kale muttered. It already knows. It's teaching us how to walk its way. They came to a platform that hovered over what looked like a massive field of ruins. Temples, technology, maybe both. In the center was a tree growing upside down, roots into the sky. They approached and the air thickened. Not with pressure, with presence. Something was here watching, not hidden, not hostile, just waiting. Then it spoke not in words, but in shared understanding. A memory not their own poured into their minds like warm rain, a galaxy long before this one. Civilizations older than stars, species of light and thought. One by one, they reached out, searching for others, hoping to be understood. They built signals, machines, doors, but something else always answered first. Something that didn't want connection, only control. The same force behind the network. The same hunger Kale's team had burned away. But what they faced now wasn't that hunger. It was the one who fought it long ago and failed. This place is its last breath, its last hope. Kale fell to one knee as the vision ended, blood dripping from his nose. They didn't want to trap us, he said slowly. They wanted to prepare us. For what? Vega asked. He looked into the sky roots above. For what's coming next. Suddenly, shapes moved at the edge of the ruins. Tall, silver, silent, not machines, not aliens. Echoes, projections, of those who'd come before. Deathworlders of other galaxies, warriors, diplomats, dreamers, All lost but not erased, stored, remembered. One stepped forward, a tall being with human eyes and a non-human body. It raised its hand, not in threat. In greeting, a mental phrase. Pulsed through them all. You silenced the shadow. You survived the lie. You carry strength and sorrow. Now we offer you truth. The being turned, and a doorway opened in the roots above, spiraling stars leading deeper. Into the impossible mindscape, Kale turned to Vega. We go in. She nodded. We always do. Back on the judicator, Lyra watched the readings shift. The gate pulsed once, then twice, then went dark. Dead no. Signal no echo, nothing. Just silence. They were gone. Earth mourned for 7 days, then prepared for 7. More? No one else stepped through. No signals came back. Until, one night over Antarctica, a single star appeared where there was no star before. It blinked, then spoke. A message across every screen, every speaker, every channel. They made it. And they are not alone.